The sun's burning rays dropped beyond the rugged, haze-shrouded mountains. For several minutes, the sky flashed orange, gold and red, then abruptly all color vanished. Shocked by the suddenness of the sunset's abrupt demise, Xander's claws sank into the tree limb, which stretched over the now concealed road. "We'll be able to see a vehicle coming for a long way," Sharky said, stating the obvious, as a thin beam of light glistened off the distant hillside. "Of course, the way they adjust the darned headlights, they could blind us up here instead of bathe the road. In which case, the vehicle will probably end up at the bottom of a gully, so we should avoid hopping a ride on it." He studied the seemingly erratic progress of the approaching vehicle as it slowly proceeded in their direction, headlights bouncing up and down, other times swaying from side to side as it passed along the curving, rutted road. Assuming it was a truck, or some other type of vehicle they could hop onto, they would need good night vision to time their jumps and landings. He turned away from the intriguing light, controlled his breathing and relaxed as his eyes adjusted to the darkness, then hearing rustling near the base of their tree, he perked his ears in that direction trying to analyze the unfamiliar nighttime sound. Before he could, there was a crackle beyond the road followed by the crunch of something heavy landing on dirt. Xander's fur rose to attention as he tried to monitor all directions. Unfamiliar reddish-gold eyes glinted in the darkness. He flexed his claws, preparing for everything, except the unseen insect that bit his ear. "Ouch," Sharky said amidst a sudden flurry of movement. Xander swiftly turned to help her, but couldn't see why she was flailing around. "Are you under attack?" 3 more stings peppered his tender ear. "I thought we'd be high enough up here, but the no-see-ums found us, anyway. Gads, how can they bite so hard when I can't even see them? I think they're half crocodile. Sure feels like it." He thought a moment, then asked, "That wasn't one of your quotes, was it?" "No, but since you like them, Anagata QSDE then. Seems appropriate. It's Cherokee for all my relations in creation, but I gotta tell you that I'm not too pleased to call certain creatures my relations." Her words were punctuated with bursts of activity as she battled the unseen cloud of vampire insects. "I don't think I want to call them kin, either." He smacked one on his ear so hard that he nearly knocked himself off the branch. "I don't suppose you know a more effective way to deal with these demons? If I did, I would be doing it instead of getting eaten alive. Of course, the Lumbee say, seek wisdom, not knowledge. Knowledge is of the past, wisdom is of the future. In that case, perhaps we need to get out of this tree so fast they can't follow. They're awful fast, how could we do that? By jumping another ride. There weren't any bugs on that rotten fish, and any other time I've seen that sort of garbage, it's been covered with flies and bugs." "True, but what are our chances of those headlights belonging to a truck?" 50-50. He closed his eyes, willing his senses to prepare for the noisy vehicle's arrival. "Perhaps it's a tractor pulling a wagon. The tractors I've encountered sound loud like that. Sounds like a motorcycle to me." "True." He blindly batted at the voracious insects. "But I'm feeling lucky today, how about you? Don't ask me that question right now." "Good point." He lifted one lid a fraction so he could determine how far away the loud transportation was. "Wonder if that thing ever had a muffler. And I wonder which is the worst situation, being eaten alive or going deaf when we're only half-eaten." She had a valid point. If the thing edging around the curve a half-mile away was already so loud that the entire tree seemed to shake, how bad would it be up close? The good news is that it looks like a pickup truck. And the bad news? That it's the loudest one I've ever seen. Or heard. I figured you were going to say something about not being able to see where to land, and if you had, I'd have quoted my favorite Zuni saying, "After dark all cats are leopards." "Well, Ms. Leopard, are you ready for another leap of faith?" "As ready as I'll ever be. After all, nothing can be as bad as that last one." "True. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. They leapt through the cloud of insects, landing on the corrugated surface of the empty truck bed. He inhaled with relief and smelled the pungent aroma of coffee. At least this truck smells okay. With a sigh, which could have either been relief or resignation, Sharky sat down and began to groom herself. Suspecting that both conversation and sleep would be impossible in such a din, Xander did likewise. Once his fur was laid neatly in place, he stretched out on the corrugated surface, closed his eyes and focused on finding a solution to Dame Esmeralda's catnapping. During the dark, bumpy journey the ride became hypnotic and he slept, only to waken when the truck jolted to a halt. He put his nose close to Sharky's ear and whispered, "Rise and shine." Her golden eyes popped open. For a fleeting moment, her attention centered on him, then it shifted to something behind him and a look of horror engulfed her features. "Dear Heather," its head is about to explode. As black eclipsed the golden flecks in her eyes and the white expanded, Xander tried to appear calm while turning to face the unseen danger. The truck shuddered as the faded red door screeched opened. His fur stood on end as he spotted a gigantic emerald and gold head emerging from the cab. "Dear Heather, what demonic entity had consumed the driver while he slept? Do you think it knows we're here?" Sharky whispered. He batted an ear, his attention fixed on the unknown horror. Someone called out a "Hello," and the thing lifted its long, black bony appendage and waved. Without turning to look at the back of the pickup, the thing slammed the door shut and briskly moved away. Only when it was clear of the truck did Xander dare turn his attention to the surrounding area and look for other dangers. "Are those black things falling off the top, snakes?" Sharky's voice crackled with fear. He swallowed. "I don't see any eyes." He peered at the thick black things merrily swaying over the monster's red satin back. "Of course, those could be tails." Sharky moaned. "Or not." For a second, he thought she was going to slap him. "They almost look like the globs of fur Jessica used to get." She was a collie, he added, so Sharky wouldn't think he knew any cats who were so lazy that they got fur balls. She was silent for so long that he finally turned his attention from the retreating snake thing to her. Golden gaze unblinking, she studied the creature, but to her credit, she appeared more interested than terrified. "Puppies," she murmured. Sure enough, 7 of the fat brown beasts bounced out of the 2-story concrete building to welcome the snakehead demon. Trust dogs to consort with something like that. I've never seen one with such a big head, but I think it's a Rasta. At least it smells like one. What kind of devil is a Rasta? She looked surprised. Rasta is short for Rastaman, like the one that you saw on the bamboo raft in the harbor. He studied the thing as it went inside the building. It does have the same nasty smell as that other one. He frowned. What exactly are Rastas? When she appeared confused by his question, he added, "Human." "As far as I know." She glanced at the building. "Lots of people look different, though that one is the most different one that I've ever seen." "Have you ever seen one with a cat?" She shook her head in a negative way. "I didn't think any of us would adopt such an evil thing, but it worries me that the dogs have." It took a second to realize he'd stated the thought aloud. When the last puppy scampered into the dark interior, he motioned for Sharky to follow him, then without waiting he leapt over the far side of the truck's railing, dashed across the open expanse of broken asphalt and into the welcome shelter of a big plant with large, long, fragrant trumpet-shaped flowers. He whirled as soon as he was deep in the shadows and looked to see if any of the canines were following. None were, so for the moment, he could relax, figure out precisely where they were and make a plan to meet Simon. Xander tapped his collar, then listened to the soft tones that conveyed his location. He grinned. "We're really close to the meeting site." Sharky, who was peering through a plant covered in vibrant pink blossoms, didn't respond. "See anything of interest?" "Breakfast, at least I think it could be." His stomach rumbled so loud it startled both of them. She gave him a half-hearted smile. "I guess that grass didn't fill you up, either." She twitched her tail to indicate a nearby wooden building. "Have you ever heard of humans hanging fish on a laundry line?" He eased next to her, shoulders touching as they studied what must be the monster's mate, as it hung dozens of beheaded, gutted and split fish tail high on a dingy plastic cord that zigzagged across the dismal dirt yard. "Are those things fish?" "I think so, but I've never heard of anyone hanging them like laundry." "You don't think they're some sort of clothes, do you?" "I mean, I've seen some fabric that was painted like water, and some like leaves, but I've never seen anything quite like that." "It's putting them up one at a time," he pointed out, as the entity clipped another pin over another tail. "We'll get one when, are Rastas both male and female?" The only ones I've ever seen have been male. She frowned as she, too, studied the stringy, matted hair hanging well past the obviously female hips. Aside from the hair, she almost looks like a normal woman. I wonder if all humans in these mountains stink. The Rostamen I've encountered don't bathe, being smelly is like some sort of religion with them. That could certainly account for some of the odor. His whiskers twirled as he studied the line's path and the potential fish he could grab. Of course, part of the aroma could be those fish. Thank goodness they generally taste okay. The woman took another fish out of the basket made of thin, woven branches and added it to the half-full line. Strange that all the fish seemed to be the same type and size. When Mike and Ginny fished, they rarely caught two alike in the same day, much less dozens. Of course, his humans were just as likely to catch a shark, which created all sorts of chaos on the deck, so perhaps the rail-thin woman with the loose-fitting yellow and green dress was smart to catch the same type. He'd never truly understood why his humans hung clothes up to dry. Of course he'd never fully understood their obsession with clothing to begin with, but the logic behind hanging fish out to dry totally eluded him. He said as much to Sharky, who theorized, maybe drying them isn't really the goal. Maybe they're bait for something else. Like what? Maybe a bird, perhaps a vulture. Why would humans want to catch them, and how would they catch them? Those are normal clothespins, not hooks. For that matter, where are the heads? She sighed. Look, I really don't know anything. I'm just trying to think of alternatives, because I can't figure out why any sensible person would want to hang perfectly good fish out to dry. I mean, why did they go through all the trouble of cleaning them, just to ruin the best parts? It simply does not make sense. Xander agreed, but then very little had seemed logical since he'd arrived at this odd island. By the time the strange woman went inside the concrete structure, the first fish had begun to turn a dull gray. I'm going for the last two she hung up, he said. I'll knock off the pins, you catch them as they fall then dash into the shrubs on the other side. If either of the dogs gives chase, I'll deal with them, you just focus on getting away. Where should I go? Those bushes won't keep dogs out for long. Where would you be comfortable running to with a fish or two? They don't look too heavy, I mean the line doesn't sag under their weight, and they're shorter than me, so I guess, if they aren't too slippery, I could get up a tree, but it would be easier if it had low branches. She studied the ones beyond the yard. That grapefruit tree looks good. Isn't it too close? She frowned. Citrus usually have thorns, but those should be more of a problem to dogs than me. At least I hope so. It's probably close enough. Anything farther would surely cause her to drop their breakfast. Do you think you could make it to the lowest branch with one fish, then pause a moment? She nodded. Good, then when the dogs start howling at the base of it, drop the fish. This is your plan? Yes. Why? Do you know how dogs like to fight over bones? She snorted. Of course. Don't you think they'd fight over a fish the same way? Oh, so, you figured it out? Yes, I get them to follow me to the tree. When they think they have me cornered, I drop the fish. They fight over the fish and forget about me, so then I change trees and get away. That's it, exactly. But what about our breakfast, if I have to give it to them? Simple, once the dogs are fighting over the fish you drop and are no longer paying attention to either of us, I grab a couple more and meet you in the boughs of that breadfruit tree. He pointed his ear. He studied the dismal yard, planning his route and deciding how to misdirect the disgusting dogs. Ready? She indicated that she was. On the count of 3. His muscles quivered with anticipation through the quick countdown, then they were off across the barren yard. A dog yelped in alarm, but it was too far away to interfere. Before it could scramble to its paws, he leapt for the line, grasping it the way he'd seen gymnasts do with one paw and batting off pins with his other. 1, 2, 3, 4, the fish plummeted toward the ground. Though he'd only expected Sharky to catch one, she caught the first 2 and the last one. When she moved to grab the third from the ground, he shouted, "Leave it. Run." She disappeared under the bush before he hit the ground. An ugly brown dog barreled across the yard, dust flying as its paws hit, barks of murderous rage spewing and eerie yellow eyes murderous. Hather, but he hadn't expected it to be quite so fast, but his plan still looked viable. After pausing to grab the last fish, he doubled back toward the plant with big, pale trumpet flowers. The dog was so close to his tail that he was certain he could feel its hot breath. As soon as he was under the bush, he dropped the fish, expecting the stupid dog to be distracted by it. It wasn't. The beast obviously wanted him, period. But that wouldn't happen easily. Xander dodged around the trumpet flower's thick stalk and changed course, always leading the dog away from Sharky, giving her time to get their food to safety. The first dog was joined by the second, then a third he hadn't noticed. Where had it come from? He didn't have time to analyze the answer, only time to react. Xander dodged under a decaying wooden structure. The sudden dark nearly disorienting him. The overwhelming stench of dog nearly overpowering him. 4 pairs of yellow eyes stared at him as the first dog dived toward his tail. With an expert move, he kicked backward, his claws sinking into tender nose. A new sort of howl rent the air, but he didn't stop to savor the moment. He headed straight at the dogs who'd been too lazy to join the chase. Kicking and scratching, and doing what he did best, Xander slashed through the inept mutts. Soon, the howls of pain sounded loud enough to shake the flimsy structure's entire foundation. "Why do you do endow dare?" A furious male voice bellowed from overhead. "J'ai out hey, now." A kick at an unprotected ear caused a shriek. "Donut mock me come under dare." Xander landed a few more easy kicks, then squeezed through an opening filled with dusty spider webs. Without pausing to look back, he dashed around the concrete building and leapt into a tree well away from Sharky's. Only when he was halfway up and the stupid dog still hadn't come after him, did he take the time to pause on a broad branch and clean off the cloying webs. "You missed one. What are you doing here?" he demanded. "You're supposed to be up the grapefruit tree. The fish are." He looked around. "I did what you taught me to do. I took the squirrel route, but only after it was obvious that you dumped them." "What did you do to those nasty dogs, anyway?" He shrugged. "I've never heard such a racket, ever. Especially after that fish lady came out and started beating the dogs with her broom." Sharky laughed. "That's when I decided it'd be safe to come over here and see why you were staying here." Xander grinned. "I hoped that if we left one of the fish, they'd get the blame." Her eyes glinted with understanding. "The Oklahoma Indians say, a starving man will eat with the wolf." "You mean those monsters got down in the dirt to fight over the fish?" "Not that I noticed, and I was watching." She looked him over, noting the globs of web he'd wiped on the truck, then her gaze crept upward. Her eyes widened with concern. "Oh, my gosh, you're bleeding." "Where?" She grasped his head between her forepaws and licked his ear. It felt delightful, so whatever he'd nicked it with couldn't be too bad. "Are you sure it's my blood?" he asked. Sharky gagged. "No. Yes. Ah, Heather, how can I tell?"